Hello everyone. Today we're going to be measuring length using a meter stick. So here you have your run-of-the-mill meter stick. You can see markings on here 1, 2, 3 all the way up to 10. After that it repeats 1, 2, 3, 4, but hopefully you can see that that is 11, 12, 13, and that the makers of this meter stick were simply saving themselves some space by excluding that first digit. So again, that's 11, 12, 13, and this will go all the way to 100. If we were to look at the little marks in between two numbers, we could count them up and see that there are 10 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, which means that each one of those little marks represents a tenth of those bigger numbers. So this would be 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, and so on. Also note that we always want to use this side of the meter stick. Most meter sticks have a metric side and a side that measures in inches. The inches side will look like this. You can usually tell there will either be 8 or 16 marks in between it. In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we know that this is the inches side. We're never going to use this. All of science uses the metric side, and if we go back and look at that metric side, each one of these numbers represents what's called a centimeter. So the distance between there and there is 1 centimeter. The distance between the end of the meter stick and there is 2 centimeters, and so on and so forth. If we zoom in, each centimeter is divided into 10 parts, and that distance in between the 8 and the 8.1 marking is called a millimeter. So a millimeter is a tenth of a centimeter. So there are 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. So we could also say that this is 8 centimeters and 1 millimeter. Notice that that could get a little clunky pretty quickly. So we usually just call this 8.1, and then for instance this would be 8.4, 8.8. Even though we know those are millimeters, we still are going to give it as a decimal value in centimeters. Now let's look at measuring the length of an object. In this case, just a typical red pen. A couple things we need to look at. First, let's focus on this end of the meter stick and the pen. When measuring, you want the end of the object that you're measuring the length of to always line up with 0 on your meter stick. This has to line up with 0. No options about it, because if it doesn't, it's going to make your reading be either bigger or smaller than it otherwise would be. So in order to accurately measure length, it has to line up with 0. Now in this case, that's pretty easy, because 0 is just the end of the meter stick. Keep your eyes open, because that won't always be the case. On some rulers, 0 is not right at the end. So you can see on this plastic ruler, 0 starts right there, not at the end of the measuring device. So now we've lined up the end of our object with 0, and the other end we can see is down there right around 15. Let's take a closer look at that and see what's going on. So here we see the marking for 14 centimeters, 15 centimeters, and you can tell that it's just over that 15 centimeter line. And in fact, it's between 15 centimeters and 15.1 centimeters. So it doesn't quite get to that first millimeter mark. So we need to take a guess as to how far in between 15.0 and 15.1 it is. I'm going to say that that is just over half, and it looks like it could be 0.6 or 0.7. I'm going to call it 0.7, and so our final measurement would be 15.07 centimeters. Now let's look at these numbers and see what we're sure of. That 15, we know for sure it gets to 15 and doesn't get to 16. So the 1 and the 5 we can be very certain about. We can also be sure about this 0. We know it does not get to 15.1. That 7 was a guess. You could be just as right saying 15.06, We don't know. We know it's somewhere in that area, but we don't know for sure. We call this an uncertain digit. And in every single measurement you make with length, I want you to guess that last place. Just like I guessed the 7 on this, you'll make your own guess for whatever you're measuring. This is standard practice in science. Everybody does this, so anytime you see length measured with, say, a meter stick, know that that last uncertain digit was a guess. Nobody knows for sure what it was. That's what we think it's close to. And you'll learn more about this when we talk about significant figures. But for now, we can say that the length of this pin is 15.0 centimeters.